What's going on, everybody? It's that time again, the Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 244 on this Thursday, January 29th, 2026. Josh Callaway, Collin Kennedy with you on a Thursday, kind of a smattering of topics to get to today. Winter workouts underway for OU football. Who's standing out early? We have some names to give you on this nice Thursday. We met the new AD yesterday, Roger Denny. Get into some first impressions there. Had some interesting comments about OU basketball. We'll talk about all the takeaways and the happenings yesterday in Norman. Some recruiting notebook stuff to hit on as well. And a little bit of Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl kind of cleanup on the back end as well. So like I said, kind of a smattering of topics. We'll hit them all here on the program today. A reminder, before we get started, though, subscribe, Sooners Illustrated, Oklahoma.247sports.com. Promo code SoonersPod60, all one word, gets you 60% off a VIP membership for a year to Sooners Illustrated, the entire 247 Sports Network. It's been a very good January for us. We've had a bunch of new signups, so keep doing it. Be along for the ride. We've had lots of great VIP content, obviously throughout the month, but even just this week. And more to come, obviously, as we get deeper into winter workouts. There's some staffing kind of rumor stuff that we've getting into. We won't really talk about today, but we may, and you'll know what I'm referring to if you're a VIP member. And Spring Bowl is coming up, so jump in, be with us every single day over at Sooners Illustrated. All right, Collin. First off, sir. Hopefully winter weather didn't impact you too bad last week.
I got this close to getting through the entire ice storm down here in Dallas without eating it. And this morning, I got cocky. Everything started to melt a little bit. And out in my driveway, I got a little too confident, and I bit the dust. So,
oh boy,
I've humbled myself this morning. I'm in a better, I'm in a better mindset, if you will.
Sure.
Now that the ground has reminded me that, life is fragile.
Did you do the, you get up and you look around, did anyone just see that? Did anyone see me just eat it?
We live in a very old cul-de-sac kind of setup. And, it's almost like an arena, right? Where I bit it and I was like, oh, there's somebody with eyes on me right now. And I didn't fall on my back. I fell on my side. So I kind of hit the ground and I did this number before, shouting a few expletives in response. But such is life, man. You got to, It's not if you fall down, it's if you get up. And I got up.
Right. Here in Oklahoma, in Oklahoma City area, we're actually just now kind of dealing with the icy because it was a ton of snow. It was obviously all snow. We had a historic snowfall in Oklahoma City, but now it's gotten just warm enough to where it's melting a little, but at night it's still really cold. So now, if you're not looking alive, you can get hit with a random icy patch, but we got through it. It wasn't too bad. It seemed like for most people, I don't think there was much power losing, whether even down in your neck of the woods, I don't think. So it was snowy. It was very, very cold, some negative temperatures like wind chill, but not bad overall. And so we're coming through the other side. Weather's getting better next week, and I'm sure there'll be another setback at some point, but it feels like we're getting kind of towards spring a little bit, which is exciting. Spring sports are about to start. Softball next week, baseball the week thereafter, expecting a softball media day this weekend, potentially on Saturday. Baseball media day expected to be early part of next week. So it's about to be that time. We flipped to Feb. This is our last show of January. We're about to flip to February. And so we're going to have lots of stuff going on very, very soon to get into. But as for today, all football. It's a football Thursday for us between Collin and I.
We're going to start a little bit of hoops.
Yeah, that's true. That is completely true. I just looked right over. We do have some hoop stuff to get into with the new AD Roger Denny, some of his comments yesterday on Porter Moser and men's basketball. We'll get into that in just a minute and all the happenings yesterday with the new athletic director at the University of Oklahoma. I want to start with some winter workouts, though. I know there's a lot of just people chomping at the bit here for anything football because, when your team, obviously Oklahoma had the playoff game on December 19th. That's a long time, and it's been 5-6 weeks since they played a game, and we haven't talked to Brent Venables since then, and so people are kind of starting to get a little antsy for what's going on. What's going on with the team? The portal's behind us. Winter workouts are underway. We're about a week and change-ish in. Tom and I dabbled a little bit on Monday with just not a ton, but just some names we were kind of looking forward to seeing how the next several weeks would go for them leading into the start of spring ball. Collin, you had a notebook this morning for our VIP members over at Sooners Illustrated of some names, just some early returns, some early feedback on some names that have kind of stood out in the early part of winter workouts. We don't have to hit them all. We can save some for our VIP members, but maybe throw out a couple notables, Collin, from what you've kind of heard. And as we were, talking about this a little bit yesterday, some names that we kind of bounced back and forth that we both heard some good things about. But for you, what are maybe the headliners so far? And again, it's super early, but some headliners as Team 132 is kind of the unofficial start of their year, right, in the last week or so.
Yeah, I don't really know where to start, so let's do this because you and I were talking on the phone, swapping what we had heard. Let's start with some freshman buzz, right? Everyone wants to talk about the new guys in town.
Sure.
I think a couple that you have to bring up right off the top are Jacob Curry, the linebacker out of the state of Florida, and Jonathan Hatton Jr., to the surprise of no one, the former 4-star running back who flipped to Oklahoma late away from Texas A&M. I wrote in the notebook last night, the guy has looked like a college player now for a couple of years. So I don't think it surprises anybody that dude has stepped into Norman and is already kind of showing he belongs. But Jacob Curry has been a guy that I don't want to say is surprised. Maybe you have a better wording for it, but from what you and I had heard to this point, some early testing, and keep in mind, folks, I should preface all of this by saying it's been like a week and a half.
It's early.
So sometimes talking about winter workouts is not the easiest thing in the world because it's like there's only so many ways to say, oh, they look pretty good, but then the hype train runs away. I think Jacob Curry, though, to this point has been certain phrasing to it, but like a pleasant surprise for Oklahoma in terms of that freshman class.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've heard the same. He's a name that has come up a lot. Jacob Curry, that is, with kind of just as far as making a good first impression. And, we've talked about it before, just in the time that we've been doing this for you and I, and also we've covered the team since before the Sooners Illustrated era, if you will. But just in the time that we've been doing this show, the amount of guys who enroll early, it just continues to grow and grow. And now it's basically the entire class. And so we talk about all the time, if you're going to be a freshman who makes immediate impact, you kind of have to be here now. You have to be here in the winter and for spring ball. And I would think both of these guys, Jonathan Hatton, who we speculated before, going even back when he committed, like there is a world where he could help Oklahoma right away. Jacob Curry, obviously not as clear of a path for him as Hatton. But when you're talking about that cheetah spot and it's kind of, they kind of need some options there. I mean, who knows? Maybe Jacob Curry could have a role. I mean, it's crazy. We're speculating. It's winter workouts, hasn't even practiced yet. But, it feels like opportunity there at the cheetah. Like someone's going to need to step up. Obviously, Reggie Powers is great. We're both huge fans of him. But you need more than one guy, right? I mean, and you have like a Boganowski we've talked about. You have a Jeremiah Newcomb who missed last season but was getting some buzz last fall camp. And so it's like, could Curry maybe occupy something there? I mean, it's something kind of fun to think about it at the very least.
Yeah, sticking with the freshman theme, another guy that I thought was worth a mention was someone that you brought up when we were on the phone the other day, a guy at a position that Oklahoma fans love to talk about. Seems like the tight end room is taking a serious turnaround, but we talk a lot about the transfers. You mentioned on our phone call the other day a freshman that's starting to pop a little bit.
Yeah, Tyler Ruxer, this tight end. And it's funny because, we talked about it throughout the 26 class, right, up until they signed. Tyler Ruxer was always kind of underrated among fans. I mean, when you looked at, go to our 24/7 Sports page, how we have the class rated in each individual player. Ruxer is toward the top. I mean, he's one of the higher rated guys in this class for Oklahoma. Certainly one of the highest rated guys on offense. I think, is it just Bo Bentley and Hatton? Is anyone higher than those two? Maybe one of the maybe Petit. He's right up there, though. I mean, it's considered one of the better guys. And again, I don't know if he really got that much shine because people were just so down on the tight end room in general. And there was such a belief like they got to hit the portal, which they did. Obviously, we've talked about that a lot. Got 3 new guys coming in. I'm not expecting Ruxer to have like some huge impact this year with what they brought in the portal and everything. But there's buzz starting early with this guy's going to be good. And that's exciting.
I don't think it, and I said this in the notebook that we put together last night. I wrote, I don't think it shocks anybody that the guy Oklahoma found by skimming track times has stepped in and looked good so far in winter workouts. But let's talk about some of the holdovers, some of the newer faces, but like veteran guys, transfers, maybe some returners. Give me like a name or two that you wanted to mention from the roster, whether it's a newcomer from the portal or a guy from last year coming back.
Yeah, I mean, we'll start with the very obvious. I want to go right to the top because I thought one of the more interesting notes, and it's not even necessarily a guy is impressing you in the weight room type of thing, but I thought you had to know about John Mateer and just kind of his headspace. That I thought was kind of interesting, and it's a good point. Why don't you get into that a little bit?
I talked to some folks, and it really, if I'm honest with you, it stemmed from a video that was put out not too long ago. I don't know if you saw this, but John did one of those little social media appearance things. He went and, I guess, did some stuff with like the men's gymnastics squad, tried to do some of the like the pommel horse, and did a backflip into the foam pit. And he was smiling and grinning. And I also was noticing, obviously, he's like doing the rings, and I'm thinking, okay, so surely the thumb is, and I kicked the tires and I reached out to some folks that I trust. And I was like, and this was with sources both at Oklahoma and down here in kind of the North DFW area. And I was like, hey, how's John doing? Like, take everything aside. Like, how's he been? And I actually got asked about that, like a similar sentiment during the VIP chat last night. So I'm glad I did. And the overwhelming response that I have gathered about John to this point is, since he's been back, he has been about as at peace as he's probably been able to in a long time. And on top of that, he's about as healthy as he's been in a long time. I was told he feels great, seemingly for the first time in a while, you would think. And I think because of that, he's allowed himself to kind of drop the walls a little bit and settle in and lean into who he is. And I mean, look, when you feel good, you obviously look better externally. And I just think that since John has been back, from what I have been told, he has been great from a health perspective, but just mentally and emotionally very grounded. And you can kind of tell now that he's not going through an offseason of like portal chaos and teaching an entire new offensive system and all this. Just sounds like John has been in a really good place since being back in Norman.
And that's really great news, I would think. I mean, obviously, if you're an Oklahoma fan, I mean, obviously the health aspect, we all figured the thumb, that's all kind of a given, right? I mean, over time, that's going to improve. We saw it just even at the end of the season. But, I mean, last year, this was a guy that nothing crazy, nothing like what we talked about the year before where it felt like Jackson Arnold really kind of lost his confidence. It felt like Mateer was it was the hardest year. I mean, he'd never been in a spotlight like that last year and have people kind of doubting him to that degree. And, like you said, compared this to last year where, he's making the transfer over and I'm sure it was a lot of new and he's going from Washington State to Oklahoma and like that. It just feels like hearing that he's in a good spot mentally and a little bit more of kind of feeling comfortable in this role as the quarterback at OU. I think him having a better understanding of what to expect just here is going to help him a lot. So that was a good deal to hear. Nothing real crazy right on Bo Bentley yet, other than that he's healthy. I mean, the shoulder thing that bothered him at the end of the year. Jim Nagy made the joke about on signing that he was in a sling, and he was like, whoa, everything's fine there. He's healthy, which sounds very, very good, obviously. Anything else? I mean, other guys, I know you mentioned Eddie Pierre-Louis, a guy who's off to a great start as well.
I wanted to talk about this a little bit. I had a couple conversations with some folks in Norman, and they were kind of like, hey, man, like the year that Eddie Pierre-Louis had, especially once he kind of established himself as a starter, it really kind of backed up everything process-wise that he had navigated to get to that point. And then, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, last week I was talking to Fabechi Wiwu at the Shrine Bowl, and Fabechi and I were having a conversation. I'm going to write like this big feature about him and all those Shrine Bowl guys on Sooners Illustrated started next month. And so stay tuned for that. But Fabechi, unprompted, as we're sitting there talking, he's like, hey, man, Eddie Pierre-Louis is like one of the hardest workers and honestly one of the better leaders I've been around. And he's really still coming into his form as a worker and a leader because he's still so young. And when I heard that, I was like, huh. Yeah. So I made some more calls, and some of the responses that I've gotten have been glowing, just as far as like number one, the work ethic that Eddie Pierre-Louis has had, especially since he's come to realize he's basically a starter at Oklahoma now moving forward. But a lot of people talk about that personality he has and how he's kind of embraced more of a vocal role within the locker room and welcoming newer guys in. And he's just, I mean, kind of a locker room favorite, if you will. And so I've heard he's been working out well and all of that and working hard, but also a lot of people are talking about how Eddie Pierre-Louis, especially as we get into the winter, is becoming more and more of that vocal presence I think some may have expected from him when he first got to Norman.
No doubt. And that's very exciting because there's a lot of expectations for what this offensive line can be. And I know that's been, the tight end obviously has been the hot button position, but offensive line has had some conversation as well the last couple of years. It was much better this year toward the back end, especially when they kind of did have that youth movement, which Eddie Pierre-Louis is, right at the heart of that. And so it feels like if it can all come together for him, off field, on it, just his body, everything, he can be really, really good. And he was obviously very good at the tail end of last year. So exciting stuff there. There's more names that we can get. We could do this for a long time, but and we'll continue to update. Obviously, it's the early, again, emphasis on early. It's been a little over a week since they got going. It's new. Obviously, Tom and I talked about on Monday. Schmitty no longer running the show for this sort of thing. Still around, still has a role with Oklahoma, but obviously James Dobson takes over. So I mean, there's some newness to this a little bit. It's real early in the going. A lot of freshmen turning heads. There's some more notes in the notebook on Sooners Illustrated with some other of those young offensive linemen. So there's a lot over there. Go subscribe, and we're going to continue to update obviously over the next month plus before spring ball gets rolling. Obviously in the middle to later part of March, which will be here before you know it. So. Just a little tap in with the team as Team 132 kind of, like I said, unofficially getting their year started a little bit here in the last week or so. All right. Yeah. So the AD stuff. So Oklahoma has a new AD. Tom and I talked about on Monday. Roger Denny comes in. He's deputy AD from Illinois. We got to meet him yesterday. Obviously, this was, Tom and I said on the Monday show, like, I don't know what I was really totally expecting. Certainly wasn't like any sort of a splashy hire, and that doesn't mean it's bad. That has a bad connotation, but it does not mean that at all. It just, it was kind of like, okay, well, we'll see how he does, I guess. And so I was very interested in getting to hear from him and President Joe Harris yesterday, along with Randall Stevenson, who does not talk. I didn't know what he looked like before yesterday. I was like, is that Randall? He got up there, and I was like, okay, that's him. So it was very illuminating getting to hear from all of these guys, get a little bit of the idea of the dynamic of this thing. Collin, Tom and I were there down in Norman. I know you're down in DFW area, but you were trying to keep tabs a little bit. We got to hear from Roger. He talked to all the big wigs, all the suits, and then he took questions from the media. That press conference is still on the YouTube channel if you missed it. President Harris and Randall Stevenson are also there, but Denny got 90% of the questions. I mean, as you would expect, right? I mean, he's the star of the show yesterday. I had a couple of things I'll get into, and we'll talk about the basketball stuff in a second. But was there anything? I mean, just impressions of the guy. I mean, I never heard him talk, until yesterday. So just getting to kind of learn a little bit about him. Obviously, a former lawyer, hasn't been in sports for that long. Anything that stuck out to you at all from yesterday?
I feel like, and I wanted to lead off with this. I think first and foremost, it's okay to, if you're out there wondering, not have a firm opinion on an athlete.
It's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
It's okay. This is not necessarily something that a lot of us have to pretend to be experts in because of the behind the scenes nature of the position. And then also Roger Denny's background and kind of his ascension, not just through the industry, but an industry before this. Totally separate, right? And so I think a few things for me, I want to say this, and I was talking about this with a friend of mine yesterday. It's hard to, when you say that, and then also recognize it's hard to formulate your own educated opinion when all you really have to base it off of is PR jargon, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but everything's great right now. And it's super easy to skim the resume and go A+ higher or whatever the case may be. It's okay to acknowledge that, hey, you read the press release, looks pretty awesome. The guy talks, everything sounds great. And you just kind of go from there and you see what actions take place from there. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
I think I'll say this, seems like a really sharp guy. I don't think it's hard to kind of see why they wanted him after he starts talking. And I appreciate the fact that he kind of welcomed a lot of difficult topics head on and answered questions somewhat as transparently as he could. I thought, too, if I'm honest with you, one thing that really stuck with me was that Illinois' brass came to Norman.
You read my mind. I thought the same thing. The fact that so many Illinois people, including their AD, Whitman, was there. I thought that was very interesting. I don't know if that's normal or not. Hand up. I don't know, but that seemed notable to me. I agree.
Yeah, I don't know if that's common practice.
Yeah, I don't know.
Athletic director hiring realm, but
yeah.
I believe you're only as good, or I should only view you in the light that people around you portray you to be. And if Illinois' brass gave him that much of a vote of confidence, if you will, by taking time out of their, I would assume, extremely busy schedules, given the current landscape of college athletics.
Sure.
For them all to leave Illinois and go to Norman, Oklahoma to just be there for a couple hour ceremony, that speaks volumes, in my opinion. And based on some of the other things that he said, I just thought, hey, seems like a really good move. I'm excited to see what he actually brings to Norman moving forward.
Yeah, I thought the thing that, as far as getting to learn about him, what is this guy like? I thought the quote that stuck with me the most, when President Harris was talking to like I said, they all did kind of their spiel where they announced him, and then they did a press conference separately. When they were doing the first thing, and President Harris was talking to everyone, and there was a lot of people there, by the way. I was kind of shocked how many people were at this thing, which maybe I should have thought that going in, but so many suits, lots of coaches. Basically every coach stands Brent Venables, I think, because he's in Mobile. I think they were pretty much all there. I definitely saw Porter Moser and Jenny Bronchick and Skip Johnson, Patty Gasso. They were all there. It was a lot. It was a who's who of OU sports at this thing. And President Harris up there, and he said, to put it into sports terms, I knew that he was qualified for the job. I knew basically why he wanted the job, but I wanted to know if he had, that dog mentality, that true sports mentality. And he said that he told him something that he made him feel good about it, but he left us on a cliffhanger. He didn't say what he said. And then Tom Green with us asked Roger, hey, what'd you say? Obviously, because that basically sounds like it kind of sealed the deal and you get in the job. This is what Roger Denny said to Tom's question. He said that he was not willing to accept anything but going out and winning. The unwillingness to accept anything but the absolute best. I have not shied away at all from conversations about dynasties. I think that's what Oklahoma deserves. I think that's what we're gonna go get. It's a big statement, right? It's a big statement. Because look, that's something that it's awesome right now, and I think that's a really cool quote. And there's some bars in there, but if in 3 years OU football hasn't been back to the playoff, men's hoops is still what it is, and we're going to talk about that more in a second. Baseball facility upgrades have not happened the way they were supposed to. I'm just throwing out some worst case scenario stuff. We're going to go back to this, right? We're going to go back to this, and we're going to circle and be like, hey, Raj, you told us that you were not willing to accept anything but the best, right? So he's kind of put himself, he's kind of set the bar high for himself, right? He's talking about dynasties here on his first day. Not even his first day. He's still a couple weeks away from officially starting the job. So again, I don't think it's a bad thing. It was interesting. It was a little peek behind the curtain of what this guy's like and what his mind. He didn't come in trying to I'm gonna need some time. He kind of went in right away saying oh yeah, we're gonna win a lot. That's the goal. And so
to back you up, didn't he say something to the effect of, we're here to help Brent win number 8?
Yeah. Said that directly. Yeah.
That's
right.
That's out there now, right?
For sure.
And you're slapping it on the guy that's in the chair currently. So, I guess what I'm trying to say to back you up is he is making statements, big statements that I don't want to say tie him to, but that would indicate the actions of Oklahoma's athletic department with him in the chair are going to reflect that of a department that wants to win championships now.
Right.
And I know that seems obvious. I'm not going to shy away from that, but I guess number one, it's good to have that out there to at least get that type of mentality awareness out in the sphere. But number two, now that that's out there, you better back it up, right? And I feel like that's a takeaway that many of us have had. Like, this seems like someone who's saying all of this stuff, kind of shocking stuff, if I'm honest with you, because he knows he has the intent behind it to go and accomplish some of these goals.
Yeah. No, it was interesting. It was interesting to hear from him. You know, again, this is a guy that was a lawyer 5-6 years ago. But he said, like, he always wanted to get in college athletics. He wasn't totally sure in what capacity. Ended up obviously working in the athletic department as the deputy AD at Illinois, did some great things there, and now he's the AD at Oklahoma. It's kind of crazy the way it's all kind of transpired for him, but it seemed like this is something that he really like wants, right? And it was cool. His family was there, his wife, his twin boys, his parents were there. I mean, it was a big deal for all of them, clearly, and for obviously, right? I mean, it's a huge job, so cool deal getting to hear from him and kind of just again get to learn a little bit about him. And just what his personality is like. I do want to get your thoughts on the basketball stuff specifically. Let's go ahead. He got asked directly about OU basketball, and basically, I mean, obviously, again, he's coming from Illinois, right, which is a really good basketball school. It's a program that consistently is at the top of the Big Ten. They're in the tournament every year, and they're in the tournament as a high seed. Like, at Illinois, men's hoops is a priority. So you're coming over to Oklahoma now. And he was asked directly, like, you know, what are some early thoughts on getting the basketball program rolling? Because obviously it's a disaster right now. They've lost 7 in a row. They're having an awful year, going to miss the tournament, barring a miracle. And what kind of timeline do you need to evaluate a staff? And this is basically the nice way of saying, like, Porter Moser, right? And I'm going to lay the clip in of what he had to say about basketball, and then we'll talk about it.
You know, with basketball, one thing we've got to understand, especially as rev share is taking hold, is the sports are diverging a little bit. Football is a lot different than basketball now. The strategies around how you build a winner are different in each sport. You know, it used to be hire a great coach, build great facilities, and once you build it, they will come. That's not the way it works anymore. And so I think from 30,000 feet, what I would tell you is I'm not sure. Each sport and each program deserves a strategy of its own. And so I met Coach Moser this morning for the first time, and so I know nowhere near enough to tell you what we're going to do over there, but I can tell you we're going to dig in, and we're going to sit down with Coach Moser and figure it out. And so that's what we'll do.
All right. So, interesting stuff, obviously. Everyone's going to read into everything. Porter Moser's seat is incredibly hot, obviously. Yeah. You know, we've talked about that. Everyone knows. Okay, I'm not breaking any news there. Like I said, they lost to Arkansas on Tuesday night. They've lost 7 in a row. They're 11-10 overall. They're in dead last in the SEC. It's rough. It's rough. It's bad. It's tough times out here. So, you know, he says that, look, like, he didn't get too ahead of his skis, which you wouldn't expect him to. I didn't expect him to stand up there and be like, you know, we're making a change. Obviously, again, he hasn't even started the job yet, technically. He doesn't for another couple of weeks. But him acknowledging that, like, I mean, using his words here, we're going to dig in and we're going to figure it out. Like, those are acknowledgments of, like, yeah, it kind of stinks right now. Like it's an acknowledgement. Like, we have to figure this stuff out. I know everyone's, again, reading into every little word to try and get, like, a hint. And, like, earlier when he said the Brett number 8 thing, he mentioned Jenny Baranchek, and he mentioned, I think, Patty Gasso and maybe one other sport, but he didn't say basketball. And everyone's like, whoa, I don't know if that means anything. My inclination is it doesn't. But I don't know. Did you read into anything here a little bit? Because, I mean, again, this is probably the most I've seen OU basketball be talked about among the fan base in a while, and it's for a bad reason, because the frustration and the anger is high. And we talked about it before, and obviously we usually talk about basketball Mondays with Tom, but for a long time, this program, it's been kind of some apathy, frankly, from the fan base. I think we've kind of moved past apathy. I think we've kind of moved into full-on anger. People are mad about where the basketball program is right now. What did you make of what Roger Denny had to say about basketball and, you know, Porter Moser, frankly?
I mean, I'm not shocked by any of it because, and you tell me if I'm off base here, on one hand, Oklahoma interviewed Roger.
Yeah.
On the other, there is no way Roger Denny did not go through this process. And at the very least, whenever in any job interview, they go, do you have any questions for us? He did not at some point broach the topic of, what are we doing with basketball? Right?
Sure.
Like, you have to assume that Oklahoma's brass, while talking to Roger about what the future might look like in Norman, and while he is sort of vetting the various programs and what that department looks like, there's no way this stuff did not get brought up. And I would assume that whether he's asking or they're asking him, how is this going to be handled, was a big part of Roger Denny's appointment.
Yeah.
And I felt, if I'm honest with you, I did not have any glaring, massive takeaway from it, because to me, it's like, this is obvious. I mean, he had to be taking the job knowing he's going to be making a decision on basketball as one of his first big moves. Like, that's happening. And it's one way or another. He's going to have to figure out whether he's sticking with Moser and almost resetting the way that the program looks, or he's making a change in arguably the first few months of his tenure. And so everything he said to me, I wasn't all that shocked, because I feel like, even though, like you mentioned, we overanalyze every word I think we all knew was kind of the elephant in the room. And I was just personally glad to kind of hear it addressed by Oklahoma's new athletic director.
It's going to be interesting. Obviously, it's a big conversation. There's still a lot of season left. That's kind of the thing about, they're not even halfway through their SEC schedule. There's a lot of season left still. And so we'll see how this continues to unfold. Is it continue to spiral? Can they find a way to at least find some footing and at least get back in the win cut? They haven't won a game. By the time they play on Saturday, it'll have been 4 full weeks since the last time they won a game. I mean, that's a long time, So it was interesting stuff. Like you said kind of earlier, it was a tough question, for your first day. I mean, kind of getting asked, like, hey, the basketball program, it was put nicely by our good friend Ryan Chapman, but it was, also honest in that, like, hey, the program is struggling. And he answered it pretty well, I thought.
Well, I mean, did you have a takeaway that you had? I know you were there. I mean,
not really. I mean, I think we all expect change to come. And I still think that, right? I mean, it's really just a matter of when and how this kind of shakes out. He is supposed to take over in a couple of weeks. That is a weird thing with just Joe Castiglione, and that whole dynamic is so weird to me, because I kind of always assumed that Joe was going to finish the school year. But obviously I don't believe that's the case unless I'm wrong. I believe it was February 15th was supposed to be his official first day, I believe, from what I was told. So does that mean it's up to him to go do this with a coach he doesn't really know? Like that's kind of tough. I don't know, but it was interesting. He also got asked about the North Park district, like getting the new arena stuff, and he had a very interesting answer on that as well. Like, he covered a lot of ground yesterday. So
I did want to bring
before, like, Illinois is a school that cares about basketball, and he was supposed to be, I think, a big part of bringing Brad Underwood. That was a huge hire for Illinois. I mean, Oklahoma State, obviously, he had been there 1 year in Stillwater, and they went and hired Brad Underwood, and he's had Illinois rolling since then. So,
I mean, I would feel remiss if we didn't bring this up on the back end. I think one big thing, too, is Denny's going to have to make a decision as far as the direction of the basketball program under Porter Moser and coaching and all that. But, he touched on the revenue share investment.
Yeah.
And he talked a little bit about how, as revenue share, I believe his exact words were, taken hold, sports are diverging a little bit. Football's a lot different than basketball now. The strategies around how you build a winner are different in each sport. So he's, number one, going to have to make that decision with Moser. He's going to have a massive decision on his hands as far as how does he push for men's basketball within Oklahoma's revenue share model, and like, how comfortable is he and making that drastic of a shift, if there is one to make. You know what I mean? I am fascinated by that, I will say.
Lots to figure out. That's why they pay him the big bucks. Lot to figure out. I'll tell you what, though, if he comes in and somehow they do get a new arena in order and this program starts to roll, he'll be, a god. That'd be unbelievable. Great way to start your tenure if he can find a way to get that going here in the next however long, year or two or whatever. But we'll see. Interesting stuff, obviously, with Roger Denny. Again, the full press conference is on the YouTube. If you want to hear from everything he had to say, he covered a lot of ground. Like we said, you get to learn a lot more about him for sure. And some Randall Stevenson as well. I'm sure, a lot of people, he's kind of a mythic figure. It was kind of nice to hear him a little bit. And President Harris never shies away from a microphone either. And so, it was good. It was good stuff. It was kind of, it was good. Yeah. It was interesting day down in Norman. All right, let's move on to some other stuff. Got some other housekeeping things here on the back end. Yeah. A little recruiting talk. We had mentioned last week that, and I even mentioned, I think with Tom on Monday, just at the very end, that this was originally slotted to be a big visit weekend for Oklahoma. They've kind of shifted it back. I think there's still some, you can get into it, you know better than me. I think there's still some visitors you thought that might still make it in this town, but it's not the massive weekend that we thought it was going to be originally. But some other kind of news and notes for you on the recruiting side. I know there's been some movement here. There's been some in-home visits, some new offers, some stuff like that you wanted to make sure you touched on. Here on the show.
Let's lead off with the weekend stuff quickly. So I think the big headline is coming up this weekend. Gus Corsair, 4-star, top 247 interior offensive lineman, is going to visit this weekend. I have also been told expect a few Oklahoma commits in town to help recruit Gus as he shows up in Norman over the next couple of days. And Gus Corsair is going to be one that Oklahoma has and will continue to feel good about within the 27th cycle. Our own Tom Lloyd put up a notebook this morning about where things kind of stand with Gus and his entire recruitment. I'm going to write a little bit of a visit primer and an update on my end later today or tomorrow probably. But the long and short of it is Gus Corsair taking a trip to Norman this weekend. Always love getting one of your top targets on the offensive line in town. And sounds like a couple of OU commits will be helping the staff pursue him over the next couple of days. And I don't expect Corsair to be making a decision anytime soon necessarily, but kind of a big exposure point coming up here soon.
Yeah, no doubt. We've talked about offensive line is, that 2027, the class they put together already is phenomenal. Yeah. So you get a guy like that. Obviously, like you said, work to do, but getting him into town, big deal. Obviously. Yes.
So a couple other things. Let's talk about hitting the road. I think the number one thing you have to talk about right now is Jamison Roberts, the 2027 quarterback target for Oklahoma out in the greater Mobile, Alabama area. The Sooner staff flew out to Mobile and hit a ton of schools, then went to the Senior Bowl for the first day of practices. We'll talk about that here in a second. They kind of made it a big thing. And Jamison Roberts was arguably atop that priority list in terms of things to do and go see in Mobile for OU because this is their guy, right? Mm-hmm. And this was the second time that Oklahoma had gone out to see him in like a matter of a week and a half or so, maybe even less. Ben Arbuckle went out there, had dinner with Jamison and some family members, flew back a couple days later. It was Ben Arbuckle back in Mobile with Brent Venables, Todd Bates, and Brandon Hall, all going to see the quarterback target.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you, like something that they, number one, should be doing. I applaud the effort. Like this is what you want to do with quarterback targets, right? Stay on top of it. Because the other part of this is when Oklahoma started pursuing Jamison, he was not necessarily as widely known of a name as he is now. And Ole Miss recently offered. We're expecting Ole Miss to be a primary player here. Auburn, that new staff is hovering. Florida with John Summerall is starting to hover a little bit. So Jamison Roberts picking up a ton of recruiting momentum over the last few weeks. And here pretty soon he'll start taking trips for spring visits, and I'm sure maybe ironing out some OV stuff. But Oklahoma able to go see him a couple of times, and he's going to be back in Norman on March 7th for the big Junior Day Future Freaks weekend, which is always, one of the biggest weekends of the year. So,
I mean, that's
Jameson Roberts was on the visit.
Yeah, I mean, huge. I mean, we talked. The 2027 class is shaping up phenomenally. I mean, the number one, obviously 24/7 Sports, but you're missing the quarterback, right? I mean, that's the big obvious. Like, you've kind of already hit a little bit of everything, and I'd mentioned what they've done at the offensive line, but if you can get the quarterback in place, and obviously it seems like Roberts is kind of their guy, then that's the one thing that makes you feel even better about it if you get the quarterback in place. So that class is in great shape, obviously.
And I love where they're at with a lot of other guys. They went on that same trip and saw Jalen Scott, the 4-star safety in Mobile, who, I'm a huge fan of. They're in a great place with him. He's had a ton of programs go through the high school and see him. I think Jalen, Oklahoma's arguably the leader. He's going to be one of the visits on March 7th.
Mm-hmm.
So they saw him. I know they stopped by and saw Trayvon Hall, the wide receiver commit, who picked up Alabama not too long ago. So trying to hold on to that guy is going to be big. They did some great stuff on the recruiting trail, and they saw a ton of other guys. They've sent out like 80 offers. It's been insane. And I certainly don't have time to break it all down, but they have been active before this dead period hits in early February. And it's good to see. Last thing I'll mention on the way out of here, as far as like recruiting stuff, I think it's okay to talk about, but Micah Rhodes tonight is going to go live with Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco.
Wow. I did not realize that. I knew you said he was, making a decision tonight, but I did not know that that's where he's doing it. Okay.
So he's going to be going live with them, and I would encourage you, if you're up about 10 o'clock at night tonight, Central Time, I should say, to tune in. Maybe some fun conversations to be had between the 2028 number one running back, Shannon Sharp, and Chad Ochocinco, which I think this is a first for me in my career, by the way. I don't know that I have ever covered a recruit going live on the Nightcap pod, which
I love it.
Pretty unreal times we live in, to be honest.
Sure. Yeah, why not? It's crazy. I mean, we've talked about Micah Rhodes before. I had kind of forgotten that he was 2028. I was thinking, man, Stokes and Ben and 20, that's quite a group. And I was like, oh, yeah, this guy's 2028. Like you said, number one running back for us in 2028 class, which feels like super long away, but it's not. I mean, it's not the current cycle, but we're on 27 now. I mean, the time keeps moving. It's great. We're gonna be talking about 2030 soon, which is crazy. But
be ready.
An important little note there. And if it goes the way that OU's hoping it will, we'll certainly have a big fish to talk about potentially next week when we get the opportunity to do so. So just something to keep an eye out there for, like Collin said, tonight on the Nightcap. How about that? So from future Sooners potentially to former, we're in that kind of season. Combine coming up, NFL Scouting Combine obviously comes up in February. NFL Draft will be in April, but we do have kind of the College Football All-Star Bowl circuit right now. The Shrine Bowl was last week. Collin was there for it. So I definitely want to get your kind of big takeaways coming out of the Shrine Bowl. And the Senior Bowl is underway right now, like the practices and stuff. Obviously, Jim Nagy's baby. Collin mentioned that Brent Venables out there on some staff. I saw a picture of Brent with Dabo Sweeney. Brent not wearing a hat, which was jarring. He usually wears it. It was almost weird. Obviously, you guys out there making an impression. We can talk about that a little bit as well. But Shrine Bowl. I mean, you were there. Obviously, it was in your neck of the woods down there. Was it in Frisco? Is that where it was?
Yes.
Obviously a big winner, and you mentioned him already. Vechi Wiwu seemed to be kind of one of the big winners of the week for Oklahoma. What are some maybe thoughts about him and anything else Shrine Bowl related to kind of clean that up a little bit?
First of all, I have never been able to get to the Senior Bowl, and obviously Jim Nagy doesn't work for the bowl anymore. That's always been a bucket list item for me. Yeah. And so I hope to get to the Senior Bowl here pretty soon, maybe next year.
It's a cool event. Yeah.
Seems like a really cool event. Obviously, if you're a draft nerd like I am, what Jim Nagy did with the Senior Bowl, that stuff's huge. And so I've always wanted to go out there. But the Shrine Bowl moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex like 3 years ago-ish, and now I have been able to go every year since it's all of about a half-hour drive from my house, and it's awesome. Deeply appreciative of Eric Galco and the entire Shrine Bowl staff. They are great. I mean, they make it easy, and it comes down to, like, they made sure I had my own little seat in the hotel lobby, and they would bring all the Oklahoma guys and a bunch of the other draft prospects that I needed to talk to for the rest of 24/7. We sat one-on-one and talked for 15 minutes sometimes. And I just appreciate everything that they did for me during the Shrine Bowl week, and appreciate what they did for all these draft prospects, including the OU guys, right? So I think first and foremost, you got to talk about Fabechi Wiwu.
Doing some center, right?
Immediately jumped in there at center, was right away pretty much working with the first team, and ended up winning the East-West Shrine Bowl's Pat Tillman Award.
Yeah.
Which, man, that's something. And I feel like, number one, that doesn't shock any of us who have been around Fabechi for a while, right? Any Oklahoma fan out there who's kept up with Fabechi, anyone who's covered him since he's been in Norman or Ednor, Texas, knows, like, the caliber of human being that this individual is on top of the player. And so for Fabechi to win that type of award out of all the draft prospects and personalities that were there, what an honor for this guy. But had a really good week, talked to some folks who believe he honestly did himself some favors. And he wasn't the only one. Jaron Canick was there, got to chop it up with Jaron, which was great. Jaron did a little special teams work, a little fullback, a little tight end. And he's someone that I think a lot of teams view as, hey, at the very least, you're getting a guy who can help you in a couple of different phases and is coming from an Oklahoma program that, I mean, he's going to be buttoned up, right? And so Jaron, Fabechi, Robert Spears Jennings was there.
Right.
The East-West Shrine Bowl practices aren't necessarily, like, I think, where he thrives, because you're doing, like, one-on-one coverage looks. I don't think that that's necessarily always been his game, but he's solid, and I think that teams like him, and then Marvin Jones Jr. I had a great talk with Marvin during Shrine Bowl week, and he talked a lot about how just Oklahoma really helped him as a player and as a person to not only navigate everyday life, but this draft process. And I thought he had a good week, probably like an undrafted free agent type, in my opinion, but it was cool to see those four guys, and I think they all had pretty good weeks in their own right.
Yeah, really cool. Always root for all these guys, obviously, and all those guys you mentioned, all good dudes. Obviously, Canick, a fan favorite, certainly, with his time at Oklahoma. Fabechi, one of the coolest guys on the team to talk to the last couple of years. And so, yeah, rooting for all of them. Obviously, Robert Jennings, Oklahoma kid. I mean, you're rooting for all these guys. And we'll see obviously what happens with combine invites and stuff. I mean, that sometimes there's always guys that I fully expect to get a combine invite who don't. So we'll see what that looks like. Obviously, Pro Day will be in March, but pulling for all these guys. Obviously, and you got Senior Bowl coming up this week. The actual game itself is Saturday. The practices are off and running. Does seem like so far Grayson Halton doing really well for himself out there. I've seen some buzz that Halton could be maybe a potentially like a day 2 guy, which is awesome. Really good dude. Pulling for him. Always kind of an underrated player to OU his whole career, it seemed like. And so love to see him doing well for stuff out there. That's really cool. Owen Heineke is out there. I know we never had anything official from him or NCAA or anything, but he's out there in the Senior Bowl. He's getting ready for the draft. You would assume that he's definitely gone. I mean, that's obviously what we figured the whole time. But he is out there, and good for him. And then the crazy one is Jay Knott, right? Jay Knott is out there, and he seems to be doing well for himself. He's had some blocks that have kind of made waves on social media, and did you see the quote he had? I wish I could find credit for the guy who interviewed him. I'll try and find it so I can make sure I give proper credit. But did you see that he got asked about it? He basically kind of acknowledged, like, my first 2 years in college were really good. These last 2, I fell off the face of the earth, is what he said. That's what Jaden said. Really interesting quote, thing to say. Just his year at OU will be all-time weird. I don't know if it'll ever be weirder. it clearly, I mean, we always knew he could play. I mean, the fact he's doing well is really not that surprising. But yeah, I don't know if you had any Senior Bowl thoughts there from those guys. But yeah, the Jay Knott thing, it's just one of those, like, it just adds a layer. Seeing him blocking some people and turning some heads, and like, this guy's probably going to get an opportunity with an NFL team. And it's like, man, what happened? You know, what a weird year for him at OU.
Just when you think you're out of the Jay Knott
I know.
saga,
It revs back up.
It pulls you back in. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm pretty much sick and tired of it at this point. I'm ready to move on. I guess I'm still shocked he's there, right? But we'll see. Look, I am not going to wish ill will on anybody. I've seen some of that flying around on social media. If he can figure it out and it works out for him somehow, then great. Am I under the impression that he can, after a couple of days at the Senior Bowl, answer what I'm sure everyone in the entire sports world has in terms of questions about the way the last couple of years went? It has at least added a layer to, like, when I'm watching these Senior Bowl practices from afar. It's interesting. Curious to see how that goes. I'm pulling hard for Owen. It's still so dumb.
Oh,
so stupid.
So stupid.
This is another thing I'm tired of talking about, because I hate it for Owen, but it's like, how in the hell do you not have an answer yet, NCAA? How? I don't know. But Grayson, I am not surprised in the slightest that Grayson Hall.
Yeah, good for him.
I mean, defensive tackle bumps, if you show what you're capable of, the NFL is going to reward you for that. I was at the Shrine Bowl, and this guy, Darrell Jackson from Florida State, showed up at like 6'5", 335 with an 11-inch hand, and I mean, like, a gigantic wingspan. He's now played in the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl. So Grayson Holden is the type of defensive tackle talent that, like, the NFL is going to love, and I'm pulling for all of them. I will say this too. The guy that I was telling some folks who are going to the Senior Bowl, they were asking me, like, hey, who should I look out for, specifically from Oklahoma? I was like, hey, man, if Kendall Daniels makes it, that guy's going to blow up, and he didn't make it.
Yeah,
so
right. R. Mason Thomas got invite, but he's not out there either. Was there one more?
Burks.
Yeah, same thing.
Which I should say, like, some people have been asking me on the board. I would assume R. Mason is a precautionary measure.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
And then the winter storms hit the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl hard. So
I expect R. Mason and Burks, not that you couldn't go help yourself in the Senior Bowl, but those are guys that are going to get drafted. Like, they don't have to, you know, I mean, like, they really, like, obviously, again, they could help themselves, but, like, I've seen Deion Burks as high as a day two. So we'll see. Again, you got combine. We'll see who gets invited to that. I would imagine R. Mason would definitely get a combine invite, and Deion Burks probably would too. And we'll have pro day and all that good stuff. By the way, the op video where he said the face of the earth thing, Travis May was the one who had the video for that, A to Z Sports. So if you want to go find that, I want to give proper credit there. He's the one who interviewed Jaden and got that quote, which is just an interesting line, from him. Just kind of almost like an acknowledgement, like, yeah, these last 2 years kind of sucked. I don't know. It's weird. Maybe we'll get a better idea of what happened there 10 years from now. DeMarco Murray will write a memoir about what happened. But anyway, weird saga. And it will continue to be weird whenever he inevitably gets drafted and it has Oklahoma on his thing. And it's like, is he
getting drafted, though?
I don't know. When they do the Sooners the NFL video in the stadium, is he going to be in it?
He didn't do Senior Day.
The only thing I've ever seen just opt to not do Senior Day. It's crazy. I've never seen that. Weird deal. Anyway, I think that's it for now. Senior Bowl is on Saturday. If you want to watch it, Saturday afternoon. We'll see how the guys do. Maybe touch base on that next week if there's anything worth touching base on. But obviously, we'll be back, Tom and I, on Monday. We'll hit some other football stuff, and obviously, we'll catch up on hoops, I'm sure. Texas on Saturday. We'll see if they can do it. The women, by the way, play tonight, but then they have Texas on Sunday. That's a top 10 matchup. So we'll have coverage of that as well. And, we're flipping the calendar into February this weekend. So college basketball getting kind of into the nitty-gritty. And like I said, softball coming up, baseball coming up. Softball media day is Saturday. And so, we might dabble in just a smidgen of softball talk on Monday. The season starts next week. It's crazy. So we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot going on. Let's get into that crossover season where it's like every sport is happening. That's coming up. So we'll have a lot to talk about, a lot going on over at Sooners Illustrated. But Collin and I will be back next week, probably on Thursday, presumably, to hit some other recruiting stuff and whatever else we got going on. There's always stuff going on that we'll get into then. But, sir, safe travels wherever you're headed, whatever you're doing. You got a couple days of not that hectic, or you got stuff going on?
I'm going to a coach's clinic.
You always got something going on. I should have known better. You're always off somewhere.
I'm going to a coach's clinic, going to hang out with some guys, and
sure.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. And I'm going to be covering women's basketball remotely, so I'm excited about that.
Sure, I'll be down there in your neck of the woods here soon. Baseball opens up in Arlington. In a couple of weeks, so we'll catch up with you then. But
yeah, man, don't fall in your driveway. Word of advice.
Yeah, I'll try not to. All right, that's it. We'll be back next week with Tom on Monday, Collin and I on Thursday. For Collin Kennedy, Josh Callaway signing off. See you next time, right back here as always on Sooners Illustrated.